You're about to uncover the rare secret that the fitness industry desperately doesn't want you to know about thigh fat. Because if you knew this, you'd stop buying their targeted workout programs, their thigh-blasting supplements, and their miracle gadgets that promise to melt fat from specific body parts. Here's the uncomfortable truth they're hiding. Everything you've been told about losing thigh weight is built on a profitable lie, and that lie has kept you trapped in a cycle of frustration, self-doubt, and wasted money for years. The fitness influencers posting their 7-minute thigh workouts know it doesn't work the way they claim it does. The supplement companies pushing fat-burning compounds know their products won't target your thighs specifically. The equipment manufacturers selling those ridiculous thigh masters and resistance bands know you'll see minimal results from their contraptions alone. They all know the real truth, but they keep selling you the fantasy because the fantasy pays their bills while keeping you desperate and coming back for more. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to lose weight in your thighs, not through wishful thinking or targeted nonsense, but through understanding the brutal reality of how your body actually works and what you need to do about it. The first thing you need to understand is that your thighs aren't holding on to fat because they're lazy or because you haven't found the right exercise yet. Your thighs are storing fat because that's where your genetics decided to put your energy reserves, and no amount of leg lifts, squats, or inner thigh squeezes is going to convince your body to release fat from that specific location on command. This is called spot reduction, and it's about as real as unicorns and honest politicians. Your body doesn't work like a vending machine where you can press B4 and get your thigh fat to drop out. When you lose fat, your body decides where it comes from, following a genetic blueprint that was written long before you ever worried about fitting into those genes. But here's where it gets psychologically brutal. Society has conditioned you to believe that thigh fat is your personal failing, that it represents a lack of discipline or self-control. You look in the mirror and see those areas as evidence that you're not trying hard enough, not committed enough, not worthy enough. The voice in your head whispers that everyone else has figured out the secret you're missing, that there's some magic combination of exercises or foods that will finally unlock the body you want. This internal narrative is poison, and it's keeping you stuck in a pattern of self-sabotage that goes far deeper than your thighs. You've probably tried everything. The targeted workouts that left you exhausted but unchanged. The restrictive diets that worked temporarily before sending you into a binge spiral. The expensive treatments that promised miraculous results but delivered nothing except lighter wallets and heavier disappointment. Each failure reinforced the story that you're broken, that your body is uniquely resistant to change, that you're destined to struggle with this forever. But the real tragedy isn't that these methods failed. It's that they were designed to fail because failure keeps you as a customer. The fitness industry thrives on your insecurity and desperation. They need you to believe in quick fixes and targeted solutions because that's what sells. They need you to think that the right workout, the right supplement, the right program will finally be the one that works. They can't afford for you to understand the simple, unsexy truth about fat loss, because once you understand it, you stop needing their endless stream of products and promises. You become self-sufficient, and self-sufficient customers don't generate recurring revenue. So let me give you the truth they don't want you to have. Losing weight in your thighs requires losing weight everywhere, and losing weight everywhere requires creating a consistent caloric deficit over time whilst maintaining your muscle mass and supporting your mental health throughout the process. It's not complicated, but it's not easy either, and it certainly isn't as marketable as blast thigh fat in 10 minutes a day. The process involves understanding your body's energy systems, creating sustainable eating habits, incorporating both cardiovascular exercise and resistance training, managing your stress levels, getting adequate sleep, and developing the psychological resilience to stick with it when progress feels slow or non-existent. Your thighs will be one of the last places to show dramatic change because that's typically how female fat distribution works. First on, last off from the hips and thighs. This isn't your fault, it's not a punishment, and it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It means you're human with a human body that follows human biological patterns. The sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you can stop fighting against your biology and start working with it instead. The concept you need to understand is metabolic flexibility, your body's ability to efficiently switch between burning carbohydrates and burning fat for fuel. Most people walking around today are metabolically inflexible, stuck in a perpetual sugar-burning state that makes accessing stored fat nearly impossible. Your thighs aren't just holding onto fat, they're holding onto fat because your entire metabolic system has been hijacked by processed foods, chronic stress, and lifestyle patterns that keep insulin elevated and fat storage activated. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk 3 hours after lunch and you feel that familiar energy crash. Your brain starts sending urgent signals. You need food, you need it now, and it better be something quick and satisfying. You reach for the biscuits, the chocolate, the whatever's easiest, telling yourself you'll make better choices at dinner. But what's really happening is that your body has become so dependent on external glucose that it's forgotten how to access its own fat stores efficiently. Your thighs are literally full of potential energy, but your metabolic machinery is too broken to use it. This is where most people make the critical error of restricting calories without addressing the underlying metabolic dysfunction. They cut their food intake, feel miserable, lose some weight initially, then plateau and eventually regain everything plus more. The mistake isn't in the calorie reduction, it's in trying to force fat loss from a metabolically inflexible state. It's like trying to withdraw money from a bank account when the ATM is broken. The money is there, but the system to access it isn't working properly. Here's your challenge. For the next week, pay attention to how often you feel genuinely hungry versus how often you feel like eating. Notice the difference between your body needing fuel and your brain wanting stimulation. Most people can't tell the difference anymore because they've been responding to every slight dip in blood sugar with immediate food. Your body has forgotten how to tap into its own energy reserves because you've been feeding it constantly for years. The path to accessing thigh fat starts with retraining your metabolism to remember how to burn stored energy instead of constantly demanding fresh fuel. The uncomfortable truth is that your thighs will only release their fat when your body feels safe enough to do so, and your body won't feel safe if you're constantly stressed, sleep-deprived, or putting it through extreme dietary restrictions. This creates the cruel paradox that drives most people insane. The harder you try to force fat loss, the more your body fights back by holding on to every calorie it can get. Your thighs become a fortress, and your desperate attempts to storm the walls only make the defenses stronger. Let me paint you a picture of what real thigh fat loss looks like, because it's nothing like the transformation videos you see on social media. It's 6 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and Sarah, let's call her that, is standing in her kitchen, staring at the overnight oats she prepared the night before. She's been following a sustainable approach for 3 months now, and her clothes fit better, her energy is stable, and she's lost weight from her face, arms, and waist. But her thighs? They look exactly the same to her. This isn't working, the voice in her head whispers. Everyone else would have seen changes by now. Maybe I'm just not meant to have lean legs. She's fighting the urge to throw in the towel and go back to the extreme diet that made her miserable but showed faster results on the scale. This is the moment where most people break. Not because the process isn't working, but because they can't see the invisible progress happening beneath the surface. What Sarah doesn't realize is that her body is actually reshaping itself from the inside out. Her insulin sensitivity has improved dramatically. Her stress hormone levels have normalized. Her muscle tissue is becoming more metabolically active. Her sleep quality has enhanced her recovery. All of these changes are prerequisites for accessing stubborn fat stores, but they're not visible in the mirror. The fat cells in her thighs are actually shrinking, but they're filling with water temporarily, a protective mechanism that makes the scale and measurements lie about what's really happening. The psychology behind this moment is crucial to understand. Your brain is wired to notice threats and problems, not subtle improvements. When you look at your thighs, you're not seeing them objectively, you're seeing them through the lens of years of frustration and disappointment. You're comparing them to an idealized version that may not even be realistic for your body type. This cognitive bias keeps you trapped in all-or-nothing thinking that sabotages long-term success. Sarah takes a deep breath and eats her overnight oats. She goes to the gym and does her resistance training session, focusing on compound movements that work multiple muscle groups. She doesn't do 500 squats or spend an hour on inner thigh machines. She deadlifts, she presses, she rows, movements that demand energy from her entire body and create the metabolic conditions for fat oxidation. After her workout, she doesn't immediately check her reflection in the changing room mirror. She knows that progress photos and measurements tell a more accurate story than her daily perception. 6 months later, Sarah's thighs have transformed, but not in the dramatic overnight way she initially expected. The change happened so gradually that she barely noticed it until she compared photos from different angles. The fat loss wasn't linear. There were weeks where nothing seemed to happen, followed by sudden changes that appeared overnight. This is the reality of body recomposition. It happens in waves, not steady increments, and the most stubborn areas are always the last to show visible changes. The real transformation wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Sarah learned to trust the process even when she couldn't see immediate results. She developed the mental resilience to stick with sustainable habits instead of chasing quick fixes. She stopped measuring her worth by the circumference of her thighs and started measuring it by her consistency, her strength gains, and her overall well-being. This mindset shift is what separated her from the 95% of people who quit before they reach their goals. Here's the myth that's been destroying your progress. You can exercise your way out of a poor diet and lifestyle. This lie has convinced millions of people that they can continue eating processed foods, getting inadequate sleep, and living in chronic stress while offsetting it all with targeted thigh exercises. The fitness industry perpetuates this myth because it keeps you buying workout programs while ignoring the fundamentals that actually determine body composition. The brutal reality is that you cannot out-train insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, and hormonal dysfunction. You can do 1,000 squats a day, but if your cortisol levels are chronically elevated from poor sleep and high stress, your body will continue storing fat in your thighs regardless of how much you exercise. You can spend hours on cardio machines, but if you're eating foods that spike your blood sugar and keep insulin elevated, you'll never access stored fat efficiently. Exercise is important, but it's the cherry on top of the cake, not the entire cake itself. Let me give you the naked truth with a real example. Maria spent 2 years doing targeted thigh workouts, following every inner thigh blast routine she could find on YouTube. She was dedicated, consistent, and saw minimal changes. Then she shifted her focus to fixing her sleep schedule, managing her stress through meditation, eating whole foods that stabilized her blood sugar, and incorporating full-body strength training twice a week. Within 6 months, her thighs had changed more than they had in the previous 2 years of targeted exercise. The difference wasn't the exercises, it was addressing the root causes instead of chasing symptoms. The uncomfortable question you need to ask yourself is this: are you willing to change your entire lifestyle to get the body you want, or are you still looking for the magic bullet that lets you keep all your current habits while achieving different results? Because that magic bullet doesn't exist, and believing in it is what's keeping you stuck in this cycle of frustration and disappointment. Your thighs are not the problem, they're the symptom. The problem is a lifestyle that promotes fat storage over fat burning, stress over recovery, and quick fixes over sustainable habits. Until you address the real problem, you'll keep attacking the symptom and wondering why nothing changes. This requires you to completely reframe how you think about body transformation, from something you do to your body to something you do for your entire system. The truth is that losing thigh fat requires becoming the type of person who naturally maintains a lean body composition. This means developing habits around food, movement, sleep, and stress management that support your goals automatically. It means creating an environment where healthy choices are easier than unhealthy ones. It means building systems that work even when motivation disappears. Most people aren't willing to do this work because it requires changing their identity, not just their actions. Here's what actually works: prioritizing protein at every meal to maintain muscle mass and stabilize blood sugar. Getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep to optimize hormone production and recovery. Managing stress through whatever method works for you: meditation, walking, therapy, hobbies. Incorporating resistance training that challenges your entire body, not just your thighs. Creating a moderate caloric deficit through a combination of diet and activity that you can maintain long-term without feeling deprived or obsessed. The process isn't complicated, but it requires patience, consistency, and the willingness to focus on behaviors rather than outcomes. Your thighs will change when your entire system is optimized for fat loss, not when you find the perfect thigh exercise or the right supplement. This is why the fitness industry doesn't want you to understand this, because once you do, you stop needing their endless stream of targeted solutions and start focusing on the fundamentals that actually work. First step: change your measurement system. Stop measuring progress by how your thighs look in the mirror each morning and start measuring it by how consistently you're implementing the behaviors that create body composition changes. Your daily reflection ritual is sabotaging your progress because it's measuring the wrong variables at the wrong frequency. Fat loss happens over months, not days, and your perception is influenced by lighting, hydration, hormonal fluctuations, and your emotional state. When you base your motivation on daily visual feedback, you're setting yourself up for a psychological roller coaster that leads to quitting. You need to measure what you can control: your consistency with sleep, your adherence to your eating plan, your completion of your workouts, not what you can't control, which is the day-to-day fluctuations in how your body appears. The scale and the mirror are not accurate progress indicators for body recomposition, yet most people treat them as gospel truth and adjust their entire approach based on misleading information. Second step: reframe your relationship with hunger. Most people trying to lose thigh fat are terrified of feeling hungry because they've been taught that hunger means their metabolism is slowing down or their body is going into starvation mode. This fear keeps them eating constantly, never allowing their body to access stored fat for fuel. True hunger, not cravings, not habit, not boredom, is your body's signal that it's ready to use stored energy. Learning to distinguish between genuine hunger and other eating triggers is essential for fat loss. When you feel hungry, pause and ask yourself, is this physical hunger or emotional eating? Am I actually in need of fuel, or am I seeking comfort, distraction, or stimulation? Most of the time, what people call hunger is actually their brain's conditioned response to certain times, situations, or emotions. You need to become comfortable with the sensation of hunger because it indicates that your body is shifting into fat-burning mode. This doesn't mean starving yourself or ignoring genuine nutritional needs, but it does mean not immediately responding to every slight dip in blood sugar with food. Third step, understand the timeline reality. Your thighs didn't accumulate fat overnight, and they won't release it overnight either. The fat storage pattern that bothers you today was years in the making, created by thousands of small decisions about food, movement, sleep, and stress management. Reversing this pattern requires the same gradual approach, thousands of small decisions in the opposite direction. Most people give up after 6 to 8 weeks because they expect transformation to happen faster than it biologically can. Real body recomposition takes 6 to 12 months of consistent effort to produce dramatic visual changes, especially in stubborn areas like thighs. This timeline isn't negotiable, it's determined by your biology, not your impatience. You need to mentally prepare for this reality and find ways to stay motivated by factors other than appearance changes. Focus on strength gains, energy improvements, better sleep quality, and increased confidence. These positive changes happen much faster than visible fat loss and can sustain your motivation through the longer process of body transformation. Fourth step, master the art of metabolic flexibility. Your goal isn't just to lose weight in your thighs, it's to become the type of person whose body naturally maintains a healthy composition without constant effort or obsession. This requires developing metabolic flexibility, which means your body can efficiently burn both carbohydrates and fats for fuel depending on availability and demand. Most people are stuck in sugar-burning mode, constantly feeding their body external glucose and never allowing it to access stored fat. Building metabolic flexibility involves periods of not eating between meals, choosing whole foods over processed options, incorporating both resistance training and cardiovascular exercise, and managing stress levels that affect hormone balance. When your metabolism is flexible, your body becomes efficient at using stored fat for energy, making sustainable weight management possible. You need to view every meal, every workout, every night of sleep as an opportunity to improve your metabolic flexibility rather than just trying to burn calories or restrict intake. The psychological shift required for lasting change is massive, and most people underestimate how much mental work is involved in transforming their body. You're not just changing your eating habits, you're changing your identity from someone who struggles with their body to someone who takes care of their body. You're not just doing exercises, you're developing discipline, patience, and self-respect. You're not just losing fat, you're proving to yourself that you can commit to long-term goals even when progress feels invisible. This identity transformation is more important than the physical transformation because it's what maintains the results long-term. The hardest pill to swallow is that your thigh fat isn't really about your thighs at all. It's about everything else you've been avoiding. It's about the stress you haven't learned to manage that keeps cortisol flooding your system. It's about the sleep you've been sacrificing for Netflix binges and late-night scrolling that disrupts your hormonal balance. It's about the processed foods you keep choosing because they're convenient, even though they're hijacking your metabolism. It's about the self-talk that's so brutal you wouldn't speak to your worst enemy that way, creating a chronic stress response that promotes fat storage. Your thighs are just the messenger, delivering news about the state of your entire system. You can keep doing targeted thigh exercises until your legs fall off, but until you address the lifestyle factors that created the problem, you'll keep getting the same results. The fitness industry has convinced you that the solution is external, the right workout, the right supplement, the right program. But the real solution is internal. Developing the self-awareness to understand why you make the choices you make, the self-discipline to consistently choose long-term well-being over short-term comfort, and the self-respect to treat your body like it matters. Most people reading this will nod along, feel motivated for about 48 hours, then go back to looking for an easier way. They'll bookmark this video, screenshot the key points, maybe even start implementing some changes, but when progress feels slow or life gets stressful, they'll abandon ship and go back to searching for magic bullets. This is why the fitness industry can keep selling the same lies over and over, because facing the truth requires more courage than most people are willing to summon. But you're not most people, or you wouldn't have made it this far. You're someone who's tired of temporary fixes and ready for permanent change. You understand that transforming your body requires transforming your habits, your mindset, and your entire approach to self-care. You're willing to do the unsexy, difficult work of building systems that support your goals even when motivation disappears. You're ready to measure progress by consistency rather than appearance, to trust the process even when results feel invisible, and to treat your body with the respect it deserves. The question isn't whether this approach works, it's whether you're willing to work it. Your thighs will change when you change everything else first. Your body will transform when you stop trying to force it and start creating the conditions where transformation happens naturally. The timeline isn't negotiable, the fundamentals aren't optional, and there are no shortcuts that don't lead to dead ends. You don't get the body you want by wanting it more intensely. You get it by building the life that naturally produces it.